welcome to another episode of Pretty Brilliant. My name is Brittany Nicole, and if you're new to this channel, I talk about reprogramming your mind to level up your life. So today I'm going to talk about one of the fundamental ingredients to reprogramming your mind and leveling up your life, and that is energy. And I want to talk about energy in a way that demystifies it because there's a lot of narrative and a lot of story and a lot of different ways of explaining what energy is. And I am not saying that all of those other explanations are wrong. But here's how I understand language, period. Language is like frosting. Words are just frosting on top of the truth. And so if something is structurally true, you can call it whatever you want to call it, but the structure, the truth is the same. Here's what I mean. We currently call our brain, but what if instead of whoever used the word brain, if brain didn't become a thing and instead it was called the blob, and we've been calling our brain our blob for 100 years, it would still be the same structure. It would still be the same electrical meat in your head. It just would be called a blob instead of a brain. And so I am going to explain the structure of energy, and I am going to use the cleanest language that I could possibly use so that it can be grasped in a way that's logical and not magical or mystical, because it is logical. To really ground your understanding of energy, there needs to be something that's conducting it. And so in this video, I'm going to use the example of a social dynamic, a common social dynamic, a sucky social dynamic, and explain the economics of that dynamic so that you can see how the energy is moving from one person to another.
Social dynamics are economic exchanges. But the currency is not money. It's neurological data that's broadcasted from your body and the electromagnetic field around you. Surprise! I know you thought your body was just your body, but no. Actually, you have a field of data that you can't see that's broadcasted from your nervous system as signal. But that is tea for another video. I am not getting into quantum physics today. Just know this. In healthy dynamics, this signal would be exchanged mutually and in a way that feeds and balances both parties. Now think of an imbalanced exchange. I'm talking about your passive-aggressive friend who acts nice and says nice things, but they also try to make you feel guilty when they don't get their way. Or your relatives who are quote-unquote just looking out for you by making you doubt your decisions. This is not balance. This is control. And more specifically, it's the kind of control that doesn't scream, I'm controlling you, but you still feel it.
So here's a question to consider. When someone is trying to control you, what are they really trying to control? Actually, it's a trick question because they're not trying to control you at all. They're trying to control themselves. They're trying to manage their own nervous system with yours, but because they are unable to do that or unwilling to do that themselves, they use you to make them feel better. Now, I don't know about you, but I find that rather disgusting. I am not an emotional laundromat. I am not your emotional weighted blanket. I am not a warm bath for your nervous system. I am a person. But I digress.
When the controller is dysregulated, activated, overwhelmed, or emotionally exposed in some way, they, rather than regulating their own nervous system and managing their own feelings, they begin to apply social pressure. So, for example, they might make you feel guilty, or might say a passive-aggressive comment, or they might strategically use silence. They want to make you feel uncomfortable. A controller fundamentally believes the following: I should be protected and comforted at all times, even if it's from my own emotions, and people should erase themselves for me if I don't like who they are. When their pressure works, what happens in their body is their cortisol drops, their adrenaline drops, their heart rate slows, the tension in their body relaxes. So their method works for them. And that's the problem. Every time you comply, you give them a little dopamine snack, and now their brain knows whenever they want a nervous system orgasm, they can come to you to get it. If we look at what's happening at a neurological level, the controller's nervous system broadcasts fear. The receiver system receives the fear broadcast and performs comfort. The controller then receives comfort, and the receiver actually receives nothing. Nothing at all. They're just left with the fear tab.
It would not be an exaggeration to call this theft because emotions are expensive. Think about the last time you had like a sobbing, heaving cry. What did you do after that? You slept, most likely, or if you didn't sleep, you were physically exhausted because emotions have a physical neurological tax on the body. So when you're in an exchange with someone and you're using your nervous system, your biological electromagnetic resources to make somebody else feel comfortable, you are pouring gas out of your own tank to put into somebody else. Just like your phone has to be put on a charger and be charged up so it can have energy so it can run, you do too. You also need energy, and anything that requires effort requires energy. So when somebody's nervous system is not managing itself and it's requiring or pressuring you to manage it, you are being drained of your juice. Here's my summary of this. And this is coming from someone who enjoys researching the edges of reality and finds myself in an existential crisis every 3 weeks approximately. I don't think we know exactly what energy is. We don't. But so far, what I have found is the cleanest way to understand it is to study how it affects your biology. When you have relationships with people that are draining, that tells you how the energy is exchanging in that relationship. When you have relationships that are nourishing, that tells you how the energy is exchanging in that relationship. You can call it whatever you want to call it. Science is going to call it whatever they want to call it. Spirituality is going to call it whatever they want to call it. I don't care. I don't care what anybody calls it. I think the best thing to observe if you're trying to understand energy is how is it impacting you, your physical body? What foods make you feel energetic? What foods make you feel tired? What people make you feel energetic? What people make you feel tired? Study your own reactions to the world around you, and that's how you can get to know what energy actually is, and you don't need me or anybody else to tell you. So that's it for this episode of Pretty Brilliant. If you are enjoying, I encourage you to subscribe on YouTube and also check out my private podcast where I go into a little bit more details and tea on the kind of stuff I talk about here in my own space. Thank you again for watching, and have a great day.